Hello, everybody. How are you? Sorry about that. I was delayed. I had my daughter had a friend come over and I had to entertain them for a few minutes. Apologies. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, Leon, how are you?
Okay, long time no see.
Yeah, that's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Let me
So-
actually admit all the other people waiting here. A bunch of other people in the meeting room. No,
Wow, there's more people. I thought we were just
no. We have a let me just actually sign in with my account so I can be a host. Oh, actually, I have to sign in with the organizer ID. 1 second. Bear with me. There we go. A few more people joining here. I'm going to turn off the waiting room so people can join as we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to August edition of Let's Fix Your WordPress Site. My name is Alex Sirota. I'm the director of New Path Consulting, and this month's session is sponsored by Weglot. Weglot is a premier translation service. If you've never used Weglot before, and you have a service that you need translated, like a website or a landing page or anything that needs to be translated, particularly in at least 2 languages, it could be up to an unlimited amount of languages. Really, I think they support over 100 languages. It's a really interesting product. One of the things that's different about Weglot is it allows you to not have to actually change any of your site at all. You use a cloud service that dynamically translates content on your forms and your pages, on your discussion boards, dynamically on the fly, and you can override any of the translations. So if you need a translation service,
can you put that into the chat, please?
yeah, for sure, I will.
I might be able to use that.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are interested in giving it a try, feel free to get in touch with me and I will connect you with Thomas Fanchen at Weglot. They are actually in Paris, France. That's where the company is. And they have some nice plans for small businesses to get up and running. They even have a free plan for a small amount of words, which is applicable to sites where you only want to translate 1 or 2 pages. I think up to 1,000 words. They also have a WordPress plugin that makes it easy to install a language switcher. You may, if you've seen wptoronto.com, if you visited our website, you may have seen that switcher that's powered by Weglot. And we don't have to actually do anything. We've translated it into French Canadian, Spanish, Chinese, Mandarin, Arabic, Korean, Russian, German, and Italian. And you can just use those buttons to switch to any language. And all those translations are dynamically generated. So without further ado, we're going to start our meeting by looking at any questions that have been posed in the forum. I don't see anything. So we're going to just go ahead and start with people that are on the call. Does anybody have anything that they're working on that would like to share and ask questions about it? And we'll see if we can help you out.
Well, I'll get started. My name is Chuck, and I don't have a camera, so, and it's probably a good thing because nobody will want to see me anyways. Excuse me. So I'm brand new at this. I'm really not experienced. I just happen to have a blog called Financial Freedom is a Journey. And you know, I just fumble around. I'm retired. I do this for fun, but you know, I only get a couple of thousand, 2,000 to 3,000 hits a month. And I'm just wondering if I'm doing something incorrectly with SEO and how I can improve things. So I'm a newbie.
Well, first of all, 2,000, is it page views or visits per month that you're getting?
It's between 2,000 and 3,000 page views.
So how many visits? About 1,000 or so?
Visits.
Yeah, so like
Bear
sessions.
with me 1 second here.
They're called sessions usually.
So if I look at my analytics,
And yeah, if you can share the link in the chat session too, Alan is asking, that'd be helping. Then we could all visit and check it out while we're talking.
you want the link to my site?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the chat is,
Down at the bottom in the middle.
yep. So if I look at overview, let's say for the month from, let's say, July 16th to August 16th. So it's only about 1,440 sessions and 2,712 page views.
How long have you been running the site for?
You guys are gonna shake your head and go, oh, why are you even doing this? I started this back in, I think, late 2017 or early 2017. And I just fumbled around and kind of self-taught, as you can tell.
Okay. Well, it's actually looks like Alan can give a little bit insight. So yeah, that's probably good to talk a little bit about the general market you're in. Alan, do you want to talk a little bit about this area? Financial blogging?
Yeah, I have a little insight because I've been writing a financial blog since 2006.
Wow.
Okay.
And I don't get much more than you do. Now, I do know a whole bunch of people who've written financial stuff and are more successful at it. It's a very cluttered
Yes.
marketplace.
Yes.
And if you're not, and my apologies for the language here, but an internet whore, and take, paid for things from people who want to sell X knows what, including payday loans and things like that, you're not going to make a lot of money doing this.
I'm not doing it for the money. I'm just doing it for the fun and to meet people around the world.
And that's pretty much what I'm up to. And also to meet cool WordPress people, because I got into these forums now too. I've got a couple of things I'll talk about later if we've got time. But it's I'd say if in Toronto, there's a lot of financial bloggers around. There used to be a conference where they got together. Now they haven't done that lately, but I mean, like, it started off with Preet Banerjee, who you might have seen on TV or heard on the radio and stuff like that. Cheryl Smolkin is doing a bunch of stuff. Ellen Roseman does a podcast. So if you have a look at, don't really look at my site right now because it's a hell of a mess, thanks to the latest Yoast update. But I'll just put my link up there. I got to clean it up. It's a mess. There's a lot of people who do this stuff, and a lot of the really good financial bloggers will gladly talk to you about things. The ones that are in it for, fame, fortune, and all that kind of crap. Well, okay, not as much, but if you're getting a certain number of stuff, what kind of SEO stuff are you using? Are you using Rank Math or Yoast or what? Okay, so
he's running Yoast.
Okay, yeah,
I am okay.
Where are you? Yeah, if you don't know you're running Yoast, you're probably not using it.
No.
Yeah, it's running Yoast. I did see one issue You're running at least 3 analytics plugins. So your numbers, you may want to divide that number in half, maybe even by 3 to get a more accurate number of how many views you're getting.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and this and the Ottawa meetings and stuff like that is the place if you want to learn how to unfutz your WordPress site, because there's a lot of really smart people here and at other places that will at least give you insights on, you know, how you may have blown your foot off, which I've done many times. But yeah, I mean, the financial world, the blogging thing, sometimes you'll write something and someone will notice it. And I've had Rob Carrick notice me, and I've been on a few podcasts. So if you get invited to podcasts, or I've got to know a few other people like Doug Hoyes, who's a bankruptcy trustee. He does podcasts and things like that. That's another way to drive traffic. But the financial world blogging, it's if I knew how to do it, I wouldn't be.
I don't want to make
this
this a job. I'm retired and I never want a job again. So I don't want to start getting bombarded with all these people sending me emails. For a while there I was, and I just went, oh God, what did I get myself into?
Well, yeah, and that's just the nature of the business, right? Like everybody and their mother wants to put a guest post in your thing for free, and you know they'll sell whatever they're trying to sell off. And some people do, you know, make money at this doing that. I can't really attest that that's a good thing. My opinion is whatever I write is whatever I write. It's mine. And but anyway, that I'm rambling, so I'll stop now.
Thank you.
There's a couple of other comments in the chat. Sandy, do you want to talk about the accessibility or readability?
What is a 12-second load? What's that?
Yeah, we'll get that in a second. Sandy, do you want to talk about the
I'll just briefly talk about the color contrast, Charles, on yours. And Alan, you've got some contrast errors as well. I put a contrast checker in the chat. And what that is that people need to see what you're writing. And one way you can get people to leave your site like that is by having text that's almost invisible. A lot of people have low vision. And you can fix that pretty easily in your styles. You know, these are settings you can use. You can just increase the contrast. You've got 133 contrast errors on your one homepage. So you might want to think about that.
130, I don't even know what that is. 133 contrast on the home. Okay.
Contrast errors.
so that
It means
identified
that the text is so pale that it doesn't pass a test that says that everybody's going to be able to read it, everyone who can see.
So what are your objectives for the site, may I ask?
Well, typically what I do is before I invest in anything, I analyze the company, and then all I do is just share my ideas.
So actually you're more of like you call it financial freedom as a journey, but it looks like you're doing stock analysis here.
Yeah, lately it's been pretty much stock analysis. And
what's the objective here? Is there an objective, or is it just more of
No.
like a hobby that you're doing?
it's a hobby. You don't make money with hobbies, and this is a hobby.
Totally, the site's totally fine. I mean, it probably could be running faster, and you know, like the name of your site is Financial Freedom. It's a little bit of a, you could probably get more traffic if you actually rebranded it as an actual stock analysis site. I noticed.
Yeah, you're not going to get on the front page for Financial Freedom of any Google search, because
How come you have banner ads on the site? Like, why are you advertising using Google ads on the, or whatever these? I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because you have like quite a bit of ads in the sidebar from TSCTV. There's a Facebook page here. So like that's something that, I mean, it's unlikely you're gonna make much money from that. You're taking away real estate from the content. So you have, about a quarter, not quite a quarter, but a little bit less than that. Like
Mhm.
20% of the width of your page is with banner ads. And if you're not, those banner ads really are taking away from the site.
Mhm.
Because this looks more like if you want to have, unfettered experience on here, you probably could take those on. You've got them all over the page. Did you place them on here, or is this something that was placed for you automatically?
It was somebody helped me out with this and placed them.
Oh, really? Okay. Probably take those out. Let's look at your sidebar widgets in WordPress and look for them for any ads that go there. I can take them right out.
Okay. All right.
I doubt, I mean, have you seen any money coming in off these banner ads?
No.
Somebody else is making the money then. Because like, I don't understand, if you didn't put them in here, why are they here? Right?
Yeah. So you go to the widgets and take those out. Okay.
It should be in the widget, sidebar widgets. You should see something related to advertisements there. It would be like above your search bar. There's one. There's a Facebook page, a Facebook page embedded that might be in there. Another ad. So there's 3. Then another ad underneath the recent post. That's 4. Then underneath the blog archive, there's another ad. That's 5. And then 6 another ad above meta, and a 7th ad on the bottom, just above the footer. So you got 7 ads on your webpage. That's going to slow down your site too, because there's have to load off an advertising system.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to find all these widgets.
All right. Well, if you want, you can
Here
share your screen. We can try to help you find where those are.
Okay. So share screen.
And then you know how to log into your administrative site.
Yeah, I'm in there. So share. Go share screen.
Help you navigate.
Okay. So share.
So, okay, I see they've changed you have the newest version of block editor. Okay, go ahead and just click the close button on the block widgets. This is a little preview of little X in the upper right corner.
right here.
Yeah, that's kind of an introduction. So let's see here. So you have a blog sidebar. Okay, click on that blog sidebar. Let's see.
Sorry, on the
Where it says blog sidebar.
this one
No, right underneath widgets on the left.
on the left. Oh, here.
Yeah, just click on that box that says blog sidebar.
Where's
Yeah, so you see.
okay, now it's coming up.
Yeah, you've got each one of these is a widget here.
So it just came up.
Yeah. So there. Okay, here's one ad. Okay, so click on that ad.
Yep.
And then that's going to be actual a block on editors.
So you want me to click on this? Okay.
Yeah. So it's custom HTML. Yeah. So you can see so this is a block in your widgets. You see the little 3 dots.
Yep.
Just above there.
Yep.
Click remove from there. Click on
Options, and then I've got.
There's actually an easier way to fix this under
Okay.
plugins.
No,
You
okay.
could just disable the Shareaholic plugin, and that'll kill all of these.
What is it?
Shareaholic.
Oh, really? Okay.
Go to plugins on the left as below appearance.
There must be a plugin installed.
So there's installed plugins. Okay.
Yep. So if you scroll down, you're going to find one called Shareaholic.
Yep.
You can deactivate that.
I believe that it might not be Shareaholic, but there's definitely going to be a plugin here that's doing all of this.
So here, I'll show you the ones that I've got.
Yeah. So clicking analytics is duplicating what Google Analytics is doing.
Okay.
And you've also got the Google Tag Manager embedded, so you'll want to decide which one to use later on.
You do have Shareaholic. You could disable that.
Well, so Shareaholic is actually putting some buttons to share it to Facebook and things on the left.
Oh, okay. So maybe in the settings for Shareaholic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do that. Go to settings.
I'm going to go to settings in Shareaholic.
Yeah. Click on monetize. That might be what it's doing. Click on that X next to ready to amplify your brand. There you go. Okay, so we should be able to see if we can turn anything off in here on these options. It looks like they're all off.
What's this one? Promoted content ads. There's no X there.
Click on settings for it. Yeah, we're gonna have to remove them manually. But this plugin may reinsert them. Does anybody have a good plugin that could replace this for those share buttons on the side of the screen?
I don't know, but you know what? Click the content tab and see what's in there. Yeah. Okay, no.
You might do. You might hit close on this.
Sorry, two of you were talking. What was that?
Hit close. And then on the left, click on settings under content library. You'll see is just a little bit up. Two more down.
Oh, settings. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh. Shareaholic seems complicated.
Indeed. Who installed this for you?
I'm sorry.
Who installed this plugin for you?
It's Training Business Pros.
They kind of have like particular, whoever designed the site had a very particular kind of idea of what they thought you might be using, but did they train you on any of this?
No.
No. Well, you're kind of inheriting a site that has a variety of things that are meant to be used, but I'm not sure if you're using any or all of them, and it's a question of what they're actually doing for you. We kind of get this websites like this every once in a while. I think that there's a lot of confusion in WordPress community around what it means to offer value online, and really, in the end, an online website, if it's a hobby, then you really just don't need all of this extra stuff. You don't need the sliders, you don't need the metrics, you don't need S2 member, you really don't even need Yoast, to be honest with you, because all of these are meant to optimize and increase volume for a particular purpose, which is what I asked. Like for a particular call to action, to have somebody engage with you on a consultation or maybe some sort of a product that you might be selling. And so that's why you're doing it. But if you're just sharing information, which is really what WordPress originally was meant to do as a blog platform. We have entirely too much stuff here, and really you could spend a ton of time tweaking all this stuff and not enough time writing new content. So I would, if I were you, I would just, if there's a plugin that you are not aware of what it does, just deactivate it and see one by one, deactivate it, see if it changes your site. If it breaks your site, reactivate it. But if it doesn't do anything, then there's really no reason to be running it.
Yeah, I was going to suggest, Alec, that you give your talk on keeping it down to 10 or 11 plugins.
Yeah,
well, I'm happy to get rid of, like, which ones you can see my plugins here. I'm happy to get rid of them.
Well, I mean, some of these are used to build your site. Avada, which is probably the page builder. The way that I do this is if you don't know what this plugin does, just deactivate it. And if it doesn't change your site in any way, keep deactivating until you only have the plugins that you know you're using. See, like when somebody else builds a site for you, what they're really building is a set of software that is built on top of WordPress. And you've got a lot of stuff here that you may have installed, or maybe it was installed for you. But if you don't know what it does for you, or what it's adding to your site, then all it's doing is slowing down your site and potentially even causing all kinds of other stuff. You might be sharing your information to some other systems that are going to be using your data or inserting stuff into your site, like the ads. So, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason here. I just go right down the list and deactivate it one by one, then go look at your site, see if anything changed. If nothing changed, keep on deactivating. Because Avada Builder probably and the core are probably part of your theme. You deactivate those, your site might actually stop working. So you might have to go back and reactivate it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But again, like this is you got to know what you have. WordPress is not a kind of a turnkey solution where everyone has the same version. Everybody's WordPress is essentially quite different from each other. So the plugins that you need are the ones that you know what they're doing for you. And if you don't know what they're doing for you, there's no need to have them.
Yeah. So something like contact form 7.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what that is.
Well, that would be a form system that you have, like a form on your website, so somebody can click and submit a message to you that's sent to you by email.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's running in the background. You could probably use it to create contact forms. It's powering that icon on the left under FAQs called contact.
Oh, okay.
That's that site. Sometimes people, when they design these sites, what they do is they actually have a clone of a site just like this one for other purposes, and they just kind of create a separate one. And they clone and they kind of replicate all the functionality that was on another site. This site is probably possible of doing a lot more than what you're doing with it. I can see Infusionsoft, which is a marketing software. There's just a lot of stuff in here.
I can probably deactivate that.
Yeah, if you're not using Infusionsoft, there's no reason to use that.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, like it's really like in my mind, the content that you write and the value that you add to your customers is well more important than any kind of search engine optimization you will do, especially at lower traffic volumes.
Right. Okay.
All right, let's move on. So
Thank you, by the way.
yeah, of course. Who else has got something? I think there was a question.
Me.
Yeah,
I have
Sandy.
a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
a question. What are people using for security?
Oh wow. Like state of the art in security, or
Sorry?
what's the best stuff out there, or what approaches? Are you asking about plugins or?
I'm talking about plugins. I originally, a long time ago, I was using Security, and I just got called in to work on a site that I built. Its server side includes, it's 10 years old, and it was hacked. And Security was supposed to be providing the security for that site, and they used to be so good. And they got bought out by GoDaddy in 2017, and it's just like
So let me ask a question. Were you using the free version or the paid version of security?
paid.
Call them. They guarantee they fix it as many times as it gets hacked, as long as you're paying them.
Well, they did fix it, right? And while they were fixing it, there were paths to my JavaScript, and all the paths broke. So the site started not working properly. They couldn't figure out what was going on. I found that problem. And now they've got, I had deactivated caching so I could see what I was doing while I was working. And now the cache is back up and I can't clear it. And I upload new images and the new images don't show up on the site. Like, it's just, anyways, I'm wondering what other people do.
You may want to purge cache just to check and see if the images are showing up properly.
I purged cache.
Run into the same problem. If I have my caching service running and I load up images, the images don't necessarily show immediately until I purge cache.
Well, I purged cache and they didn't
They didn't show up?
purge. No.
So
The images
here's a
are
bigger
there.
question. Who's your host?
Oh God, domains priced right. It's not my host, it's the client's host.
Okay, so one thing to be aware of, not all hosts are created equal.
Oh,
Not only on the quality of the host, but on what security plugins you can use.
yeah.
Based on the name of that hosting company, I'm going to assume that that they definitely fall into the very low end pricing hosting.
This is the weird part, is they're really expensive. It's like $30 a month for these guys.
Wow.
And they want
Wow.
an extra $5 a month to add HTTPS.
Really?
It's like,
Okay, any host that charges you for HTTPS is terrible.
I know, and I
Um,
told the client and she
So
just
here's
like,
your opportunity to move. So what I agree completely with what's being said here. So this is your opportunity to recommend to the client, we're going to clean your site by actually moving it to another host.
Now I will tell you, when it comes to security, Wordfence is a great plugin,
Mhm.
but if it's not configured correctly and it's on the wrong hosting, it is a very resource heavy plugin.
Absolutely.
okay.
ithemes security may be a better option. It's not quite as resource intensive.
Mhm.
Depending upon your skill level and the host. If the host supports HT access, I personally recommend Bulletproof Security by All-in-One. Sorry, I think it's AI Pro or something. But
Okay.
Bulletproof Security, the free version, works great.
Wait. Now I've got to write this. It's
Can you
okay.
share those?
Wordfence.
Can you share those in the chat?
Yeah, I'll throw them in the chat. I also recommend Fail to Ban. Love Fail to Ban.
Failed to ban.
And I use Cloudflare.
Okay.
Cloudflare's denial of service protection and some firewall rules also do quite well to help even the worst hosting.
That all sounds very good. In terms of like I've already recommended to the client that we move hosts. I've found one that offers more than these guys offer. That's like a third of the price. And she just is happy where she is. And when I go to upload things, like it times out over and over again. So like a simple upload can take 10 minutes.
Yeah, so the site's broken, basically.
Oh, it's so broken.
So the thing that's cool about moving hosts is we may give some recommendations. We always have this discussion, but a good host will actually do a migration and they will, in effect, remove the stuff that they know it's bad, or they will tell you, hey, the site needs to be rebuilt on our to export the content and rebuild the site, because there is a point of no return in these things. Like if your site has not been updated and you've got code that's been changed on WordPress core.
Oh, this isn't WordPress. Oh man, see, I shouldn't even be talking about this here. This is all like hand-coded server-side includes.
So this is like
so old. It hasn't been updated.
Well, migrate her to migrate her to so that from security. Then it has nothing to do with WordPress. These plugins won't work. It'll be some sort. I mean, you have to rebuild the site. Really. Like, there's not going to be any real quick solution. I'll show people what Wordfence looks like. It is a pretty cool plugin. I actually haven't seen. We're doing some plugin development in our company, and actually I'll show you our plugin that we're working on. It's kind of interesting at some point if we run out of things to talk about. But this is Wordfence. It's got a firewall, so it runs in WordPress. So it's a piece of software that runs inside of WordPress. There are some security systems that run outside of WordPress, like Cloudflare, that protect more than just WordPress. And Wordfence, kind of its claim to fame, the original one that I saw, is now the information's in tools, and it has this live traffic view of showing basically who's hitting your site in real time. So actually they've improved this quite a bit. Now they show, okay, here are the people that are hitting your site. Now these could be wanted and unwanted traffic. I'm looking at this closely. I can see that there's myself here. There's my developer in Collingwood, another one of my developers in California. Here's me some more. And you can actually see real traffic and see exactly what hits and what IP address and everything they're coming from. You can even expand these results and see exactly what kind of computer they're using. All this information is all happening on your site. This is a dev site. This is not a production website. It's a development site. But I can actually look at crawlers. And it's interesting. Our site, I think, is not published to the internet. So we made it so that it's basically crawlers don't search your site. Let's see if there's any blocked. No, nothing blocked here, locked out, nothing. So what's interesting about this is if you install the software on any website that's on WordPress, which it has to be WordPress, and you will see traffic from people and from crawlers, which is like Google, but you'll also see all sorts of various different other kinds of traffic that somewhat looks nefarious, especially if they're trying to access your WP login over and over again. Trying to hack your login screen. So this Wordfence tool allows you to actually do a lot of analysis like that, and you can just block certain accounts. But which is the fact that you can block them is nice, but honestly, that's not going to do anything because there's always going to be some kind of traffic that's trying to infect your site. This diagnostic is a real deep diagnostic about your whole environment. It shows you a lot of technical stuff. It has some information about your current firewall. But basically what the purpose of the software is essentially to kind of analyze your site, tell you, you can manage this firewall, which this word is not really, it's not a network firewall. It's more of like a application level firewall. So you can go in here and say, okay, well, there's rules, there's a block list, which is disabled right now. Real-time block list, they have a set of addresses that are attacking WordPress sites. They can automatically block those addresses if you want. Here's your brute force protection, so that stops password attacks, and it tells you some of the rankings. This is very popular now. Like, you get like an A or you get like a percentage as to how well you're done as almost like a game to do this, which I personally do not like, because really this isn't really a game. This is more of like, if your site is commercial and you're making money off it, and you get hacked, your livelihood is at risk, or it's just not very fun to actually have to deal with it. And then you can do scans, and they will scan various different kind of signatures in your code. And a lot of the security software for WordPress, there's a whole bunch of them. We'll do these kind of scans against vulnerabilities. It may tell you which plugins have vulnerabilities or which themes. And there's just they have like a huge amount of things that they check. And then they'll show interesting things. Like, for example, here's a scan that ran on August 17th at 4 o'clock. This could be run automatically and recorded. And says, well, the debug log file is publicly accessible on our server. Well, let's see. Here's the URL. Is it publicly accessible? Let's see. Look at that. Our log file is publicly accessible. That's not good. Anybody tell me why that's not a good thing?
Yeah, because it's all the transactions.
Yeah, you can see literally the whole path of where my environment is installed. So right there, you're already getting some stuff that you can start trying to hack into just simply by knowing where it's installed. You're not supposed to know that as a user. So what's happening here is that the scan says, hey, you should do something about it. This is a critical issue. It says it's a critical issue. And so I could hide the file. I can ignore, or I could open these details, and it gives you some information about what you do. I can delete the file, but it'll start populating again with a log. I can change where the log is stored by reconfiguring WordPress. And then you can kind of go through this, or I can just hide this file and effectively make it so it's inaccessible.
Wait, is that making, whoops, is that making the file inaccessible, or is that making the note that, like, is it just hiding the note?
Or ignore would basically say, remove this issue from my list. I want to ignore this issue.
Right.
So it means don't do anything. It's just kind of, I don't care that this is happening. This may not be a big problem. This is a dev site. I don't really care that much that we actually want this debug log file to be accessible so we can use it. Although really it shouldn't be. So when you go into production, this file, you can turn off WP debug and turn off the log altogether if you want, and turn it on only as necessary. So you can also delete the file from here. So you can do or hide the file. So this is a category of types of errors. Here's another file, the php.ini file available inside of this subdirectory. And again, it is probably not a thing that you want to have although this one is not as bad as the other one, frankly. I wouldn't be too overly concerned about that. But you can see this is a thing where you can actually get into an enormous amount of complexity here, right? Here is an old WordPress core file not removed during an update. Well, that's a low priority, right? So here's a high priority, here's a critical, here's a bunch of low priorities, and most of the issues are low priorities. But you can go into a site, install Wordfence that's problematic, and you run this and you can get all kinds of critical errors. And in some cases, it'll be able to fix them. In most cases, it will not. You'll have a whole bunch of things, but I'll be honest with you. In my experience, most of the software, honestly, is there for you to click this magic button right here, upgrade to premium, or hit this magic button right here. Need help with a website. These pieces of software is what I call adware. They are very good. They are extremely complex pieces of software for security, but they only have one particular point in mind. They want you to upgrade and pay for a premium version of this, so that somebody or the software will do something well beyond what it does out of the box.
Hey, Alex, hold on one sec. We got so much background noise over here that we're having a hard time hearing you.
No, sorry.
Somebody's cooking dinner.
Oh, let me just go ahead and mute everybody else.
Thanks.
Can I mute? There. If you want to speak, I can feel free to unmute. I personally don't really believe, like, I use Wordfence to do these scans and some of the diagnostic. I personally believe that the host, where you're hosting, should do the generous share of protecting your site. And what you have to do is make sure that you are using only the plugins that you need. Make sure they're updated. They're reputable plugins with lots of good reviews, maintained regularly, that don't have vulnerabilities, and make sure you update your WordPress core, especially when you have releases. So if you do regular updates to your core WordPress and your plugins, for example, see we have one plugin that needs to be updated here, you will do a much better job. Your stance from security will be better, and you will have less problems. The host that you're using is the first step. So reputable hosts.
One piece I'd like to throw in, two-factor authentication. Wordfence has a standalone plugin that'll let you do it, and there's several others. That does wonders because a lot of us don't have the best password practices.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you can do to help out your password practices would be wonderful on an admin account.
Yeah, the two-factor doesn't change your password practices. What it does is it makes sure that if your site is compromised with your password, that somebody will be able to log in as you, and two-factor will give you a second factor that they won't. So that basically allows you to be really poor with your passwords, but ensure that if your passwords are compromised, if your admin passwords. But the thing about two factors, I guess you have to turn it on for everybody for it to be really effective for all users on your site, if you have more than one. And then therefore you're kind of inconveniencing the rest of them. Yeah, two-factor is a good thing. I find two-factor is really probably a little overkill for WordPress. Frankly, you just have to have a better password scheme. But one thing that you should know about, so let's talk about updates. So first, the site. If you're paying $30 for a site and you have to pay for SSL, and they're not helping you with security, it's time to switch hosts. Hosts really, in my mind, are really cheap. So like less than $5 a month, which is totally fine. They're most likely, they don't give a lot of resources, but in many cases, if you have a hobby site, it's totally fine. Or WP Engine for a commercial WordPress site that you need to have 99.99% uptime. And they do a lot of work on their end to make sure that they're protecting your site before even WordPress is hit. And there's
Alex, if it was my call, we would have moved hosts. Really, you know, but it's not, right?
Well, so, even consultant, I can recommend and say like, I can fix this only if we move hosts.
Sorry?
I mean, they're looking for your advice. Why can't you recommend that they move hosts?
Yeah, so I did that.
Normally didn't.
Alec, can I
You
interject?
said they
for
didn't want to.
Minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Hello?
Yep.
A few months ago or sometime last year, you directed our website to be hosted by an outfit called Cascade Valley Designs.
Oh, yeah.
I have listened to all this discussion tonight. She is by far the best hoster I've ever encountered.
I'm glad that you think so. It's good.
And
Doesn't let you
know,
down.
she is integrated. She went through the 2 websites I'm involved with. Actually, there's a third one that's only 4 pages about my book, but that she just added that in for no charge. But the point is, I've had different issues come up. I get in touch with her, and it's fixed.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah.
And like I had issues with gravity forms come up. I told her about it, and she says, "Oh, I'll just put you on my general license for gravity forms."
No, because you didn't have the premium license.
And all sorts of stuff like that. Earlier last week, one of the people involved with one of the sites tried to send an email out to members of our church and got all sorts of bounce backs. I sent the information to Anne Marie. We had to get his full email with all the header stuff and all that background stuff to her. About half an hour later, she came back and we fixed it. She went to the email host.
Wow.
And they had to fix a server.
Wow.
And that's like the support I've had from her for security issues and for all this other stuff. I think I paid $270 a year for my site. And that means she gives you all this support. And it's just relieved a whole ton of the headaches I've been hearing about tonight.
I totally agree. Anne-Marie Gale from Cascade Valley Designs is definitely what she's doing. Actually, is here. Sure, I'm happy to recommend her. She'll probably host some non-WordPress site too on her. She resells from a company called MDD Hosting, a very small boutique hosting company that's very good at high performance sites. We do host actually my company site with her. When I moved, when we redesigned the site, I didn't even like bother with anyone else. I just said, go to Anne-Marie. And I haven't had to really do anything for support with her, but she's just, it's not the technology in that case, really.
Yeah.
It's partially that. It's her knowledge. And
I was having issues with this PHP any upgrades.
Yeah.
And in terms of trying to be compatible with older versions, newer versions, she fixed it.
Yeah.
It's no longer an issue.
She just knows, well, she's the consummate professional, right? So you talk to a large company like GoDaddy, there's not really going to be anyone that cares about your site. They're probably talking to 100 people, each rep 100 people a day.
Oh, yeah.
They go and they basically try to get you on the phone as fast as possible or try to point you to some help article. So really, normally what you're paying for when it comes to hosting is support. You're not really paying for that little bit of disk space and CPU power that you need. And so that's what it comes down to there. And if you get a good support person like Anne-Marie, that's literally like handling your own thing. I don't know what'll happen if she gets 100,000 customers. She'll have to train a bunch of other Anne-Maries, but for now, she's very good boutique hosting provider.
As I say, for all the people I've dealt with over the years, she has been the greatest to work with.
I agree with you. That's why I recommended her to you, because I learned of her from Cami McNamara in Seattle, who's a pretty established WordPress maintenance and designer in Seattle, and she's a personal friend. And I've moved lots of hosts.
Anne-Marie's somewhere in eastern Washington State.
Right.
But doesn't matter. I mean, somebody sends me a problem, I forward it to her, and I get a fix. Sometimes there was one case somebody said, "Oh, I'm getting bounce backs on this forwarded email address. Maybe we should close it down." She went back and looked at it. She says, "You're only getting bounce backs from a couple of the emails. Look at all the other people whose emails are getting through."
She knows her stuff is what it comes down to, outside of WordPress, right? And she's got good judgment. That's the thing that's good about her. She knows like how to manage a particular issue and do the right set of things. So yeah, she's not the only one. I mean, there is a lot of smaller boutique companies like I think MDD Hosting, where she started. I remember before she did her own host, she used to just host in there, and her value add is she's the support part that's better than the underlying support of the host, because she knows your site, she knows what you got installed, she knows it intimately, whereas they can't possibly know that. They really almost don't care. They're not really supporting your particular install. They're just saying, hey, this is what I had an interesting issue with my host of Ionis. I couldn't upload any graphics, or actually I couldn't do anything on my WordPress site or add information to it, and it would give me this weird error that would come out in my WordPress dashboard. I called them, and after about 10 minutes, they're like, your hosting account is out of maximum number of files, which was like 262,000 files. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I went in and they showed me, and sure enough, I was out of max files, not disk space, but like the maximum number of files. So I deleted a couple of installs of WordPress we were messing around with, and sure enough, that was the problem. So I mean, in some cases, you get a really good sort of something that you completely don't think is actually the problem. So after the hosting, so get that done. Like, forget about anything that you're doing. Get a good, reliable host. Step number one. Step number two is you can actually, let's see, I'm sharing still. So you go in your plugins, you can actually enable automatic updates now. So you can create, in fact, on Ionis, it looks like they automatically turn on automatic updates. That means that these plugins will always automatically update, unless they can't. Certain premium plugins will not automatically update, even though it says permanently active, because they need either a license key to be updated or you have to download them manually. So there's still a set of plugins that need that kind of update. But WordPress is getting more and more to the point where they expect updates to be automatically updated on their own. When an update comes out, it does update, and hopefully it doesn't break your site and you have a backup. And the reality is 90% plus, 99% plus of the cases, it won't break anything unless you actually have a conflict, or you've chosen plugins that don't work well together, which is fairly rare, but of course it is possible to happen. And then of course,
one other thing she sends out is she sends out a monthly performance report on the website. And telling how many people are trying to reach you and who your competition is for searches and all this sort of stuff.
Yes, that's a lot of value. Alan says sold. Yeah, we recommend her because she doesn't support our meetup in any way. She's all the way on the other side of the country, and she's on the West Coast, so she's in Pacific time. Okay, yeah, Alan says change your admin login not to be admin. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of things. You should never really have a login called admin. In fact, WordPress, when you install it, in most cases, does not anymore create a default user called admin. You usually are asked, what is your default username? The problem with it is that really a lot of usernames, like Dan, for example, is fairly straightforward username. So you still have to really have a good password. And if you're not aware of the fact that when you create a user in WordPress, the default password it generates is super strong, right? Look at this password. So you can keep that. Don't make passwords easy to guess. You'll be sorry. That's basically what it is. If you make a password less than 10 characters with just one word or something like that, or 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0, something like that, that account will be hacked. And if it's an administrative account, you will be sorry. You'll be very sorry. Your site will definitely get damaged in some way. If an administrative, and because it's not somebody manually doing that, it's an automatic system that's probing your site. So good host, automatic updates, and high quality support from your hosting provider that will make sure that they'll give you good advice as to what to run on your site.
Yeah. By the way, talk about two-factor authentication. Apparently this fall, Google is going to require it.
Oh yeah? On what? On a WordPress site?
I guess when you try to log into anything Google.
Oh yeah, that's possible. Sure. I wouldn't be surprised about that. I've had two-factor authentication on for a while. In case you guys are interested, if maybe some people don't know what two-factor is, let me actually share with you. Might be useful for folks in the meeting. I'm going to share with you my phone. Zoom here. Let's see if this works. Yep. Okay. So what's a two-factor authentication? Well, the two-factor authentication is, let's see here. Two-factor authentication is basically a second dynamically randomly generated password, usually, that is attached to your account on various websites. So this is my authenticator app from a company called LastPass that holds all my passwords. I actually don't know anymore any of the passwords to the sites I access. I keep them in this password manager, and I've got hundreds of passwords here for every site that I've used probably my whole life, including my Wi-Fi, a lot of common Wi-Fi sites. I can look at the password in my vault, but I rarely know what it is. I automatically assign them, and they're stored in here. So I only have one master password that I can access on my computer and here, and I never know the passwords anymore. If I have to reset them, I can reset them. This thing will update them for me, but just the idea of sharing a password between just for your convenience is absolutely forbidden as far as I'm concerned. So you can use a tool like LastPass, One Password, DashPass or Dashlane, I think is another one. Do not use the password managers in web browsers. They're not really secure. And not only that, they usually are only compatible on machines, sometimes they're mobile compatible, but the idea of having a password manager on a mobile device is really handy. So LastPass also makes a Google Authenticator compatible authentication app. Google Authenticator is Google's sort of what they call TOTP. I forgot what it stands for, TOTP, but it's related to two-factor authentication. So the idea here is you go to the website, you turn on two-factor, or like the WordPress plugin will say, for two-factor, it'll say, go and enter this code into your two-factor or scan this QR code with your camera. And these passwords are only available on one device. So I can't generate these on multiple devices. It has to be in my physical possession. So these are generated, you can see the little timers every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, these passwords change for every account individually. So like I have a two-factor on Facebook. Somebody tries to log in with my credentials. They know my username and password. Try to log in, Facebook will say, I'm not sure who you are. What's your second factor? What's your second ID? I have to put this password in. If I don't put it in within 30 seconds, it says, sorry, that's not correct anymore. Actually, that's not exactly true. Turns out that you have a 30-second grace period. So the previous password and the current password, second factor password are allowed. But there it is. It just switched again. So you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 22 second passwords. And this is I have a G Suite for a company I'm working with. That's their G Suite. I have my own Google somewhere in here. This, by the way, these passwords are not you still have to use your original password to log in. But then if you're going on a new machine or another mobile device, it'll say these apps will always say, what is your second password? And so your second factor. And so you have to provide them. Now there are other second factors like SMS messages. So there's two other ways you can have a second factor sent to you by email. I totally hate that approach. I know a lot of people use it. Actually, Eric, I'll address the backup transfer with this app particular. That's a good point. So email-based second factor in my mind are insecure, although people have argued with me, where you have an email on file, you log in, it'll send you a second factor by email, you copy and paste it from your email into the web browser, and then that's your second factor. And then it saves that, and there's, depending on the policy, it might ask you to re-enter that at some point in the future with another second factor. The SMS one is totally fakeable. I hate when they do it, second factors by SMS message. That's totally spoofable. It's already been proven that people can send you a message like that, spoof. They can actually redirect where that message is sent if they really want to. It's an unsafe second factor, in my opinion, SMS. But certain companies still use it, and I hope they stop using it. Now, so
Microsoft is using an authenticator as well.
Yeah, so Microsoft has their own. It's actually it's primarily for the Microsoft apps, although you can, as I understand it, it can be used for second factor authentication as well.
Okay. You can use Microsoft Duo, Authy, Google Authenticator, pretty much interchangeably. LastPass as well, all interchangeably. Right. Hardware tokens are actually going to be a better choice anytime you can do it.
that would be amazing to have a hardware token, but there's always a cost involved, and that each hardware token is unique for every service, and so it's a little bit.
No. So look at a YubiKey, and you can actually use it's running what's called FIDO U2F. You can use that for Facebook, Twitter, Dropbox. So you can Google. So you get quite a range on that. It also works for Coinbase. They also have standard ones where it just does a standard decayed password like the devices.
So Eric has some stuff to say here. Use a password manager to generate and store your passwords. Yeah, that's absolutely true. They use your usernames. That's great. So password managers are obviously Eric. Eric, what are you using for a password manager?
I'm using LastPass.
Cool.
And I found WordPress allows you to have a 50-character alphanumeric username.
Oh, yeah.
So every website that I use has a unique 50-character alphanumeric username.
Yeah. Peter's asking, is 2FA not necessary on WordPress? Really, it's a matter of, if you have a lot of users on your site and you don't trust them to set good passwords, a second factor will ensure that even if they set a crappy password, if you have a policy for two-factor, you're forcing all your users to do it. If you only have yourself and you know you're using a good password, two-factor really is a bit of it's a bit much, I think, if it's just you as an administrator.
Yeah. So for me, I run two-factor on all accounts that can make changes to the site. So I don't force subscribers or customers to use it. But anybody that's a contributor or higher has two-factor, so that if that account gets compromised, it's harder for that account to get compromised.
Yeah. So this is a really good point about transfers to new devices and restores. Very good question from Peter on that. Was it Peter? Oh, no, Eric. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. So LastPass Authenticator did not have this feature until fairly recently, and they do now have backups and restores. And I really like this feature. In fact, I actually had to recently use it. So the thing about two-factor is it's tied to a particular cryptography mechanism to create these revolving passwords. Now, you've tied it once to your account, and you notice I have Face ID opening up this thing. So you have access to this. You have access. Somebody steals my phone, and they want to log. You can literally, I'm giving them a list of all the accounts I have two-factor, and they can try to log into my GoDaddy, and they have the second factor. So you have to unlock this app, which I like, but most of them actually. Yeah, most of them have a second factor. I don't know if I have Google's Authenticator on here. I think I took it off. Yeah, I was using it initially, but I started using this. And the reason why I started using LastPass is because it has automatic backup functionality right here. So you see, it does a backup. I can actually do another backup if I want, and it does a quick backup. And really all it's doing is backing up these instances. And if I switch to another phone, I can log into LastPass Authenticator there and restore my backup. I don't have to reestablish these connections. That's a real pain in the butt to actually have to say, oh, I have to reestablish. You have to go tell your host, I'm going to remove my existing account on second factor. I have to scan it again. And then, of course, if you need a second factor to log in, you're going to be kind of locked out, because if you need a second factor, if you don't have access to it, well, how do you log in without a second factor? You have to use an alternative, like maybe some kind of email or something like that. So this does have backups, and it works great. I've actually used it, and it was successfully. That you can add, though, transfer this to another phone unless you deactivate on the first phone. So basically, it's not available on two phones. It's only available on one mobile device. It could be on a tablet if you want with the Wi-Fi. A little bit of a detour into second factor. You've never used it, it's really, really handy. And a lot of bank services, it's funny, I find interesting that even Royal Bank still doesn't have second factor authentication on their sites. They have like challenge phrases, but I'm surprised they still don't have it.
I find most of the banking institutions are the worst when it comes to security.
Isn't that interesting?
I've got one that I use that they mandate a 12 to 14 character password.
Yeah.
With special characters.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
But what they don't tell me is that they only accept 4 special characters. They have specifically 4 that they accept. If you use anything but those, it fails, and it doesn't tell you why. And help desk doesn't know either.
Hmm.
They don't know what the 4 characters are.
I just Googled Royal Banks. They do have a second factor, and that second factor uses SMS, which means I'll never turn it on. Oh, God. So they implemented using SMS, which is text messaging, the second factor. And I would never turn that on. I'm just actually curious to see. I don't actually see the second factor in there anyway. They said that they have it, but I don't think, I think they probably turn it off because they know that second factor is not, via SMS is not secure. They need to implement a proper authentication scheme, second factor. That's probably, if I wanted to turn on anything on second factor, it would be a banking system. That's the first thing. Oh, hard to implement in COBOL. Yeah, is that right? Oh. Yeah, probably. It's a user interface thing for the website. It's just the authentication layer, right?
Yeah, I know, but most of banking is still the back ends and where all the money goes moving around is still all COBOL.
I hear you, but I'm looking at the front end. I'm looking at the,
I know.
and just the user interface for the website. And I'm sure they've redesigned that thing a million times already.
Well,
So,
I've had all these finance guys talking about all the new exciting stuff in banking, and I'm going, yeah, well, the back end's still all COBOL. Oh no, it's not. I'm going, you go check, boys.
yeah, right.
See what you're talking to. It's COBOL because it's
they're-
safe.
This is safe, right? It's like, yeah. I actually found, yeah, so Toronto Dominion supposedly has 2FA as a standard feature. There you go, TD.
Yeah, it does.
There you go.
But still, it's
Mhm.
banking. Say, I don't know. They don't spend enough on security in my book, but
Okay, so let's see, who else do we have? Who wants to see our plugin that we're working on? Anybody interested in a Wild Apricot to WordPress plugin?
yes, please.
No. So my company, New Path Consulting, last fall, we had a client that said, we want to connect this custom proprietary system called Wild Apricot to WordPress. So Wild Apricot is a membership management system. There are at least 30 plugins that do membership management on WordPress. Ultimate Member, Restrict, S2 Member, there's a ton of them. But think about those membership plugins. It's hard is that they're not really easy to use. Like for people that are not very technical, the configuration of membership levels and renewal policies and all kinds of stuff related to subscription type services are difficult to use. They're good plugins. I don't have anything against them. They're just not very user friendly. But more importantly, they also tie to the idea of access control. So the idea is if you're a certain member, you have access to a certain part of your site. If you're not a certain member, you don't have access. And you want to restrict pages and you want to store data in a database and kind of a customer relationship management system. And there's been this long kind of debate, I think, in the WordPress community where WordPress started as a blogging platform. Then it became a content management system in WordPress 3. And then somehow it bled into a CRM system, probably because of WooCommerce, because WooCommerce became an e-commerce system. But because you have e-commerce, you have a list of customers. So all of a sudden now you want to maintain a relationship with customers, know what they bought, when they bought it, when did you contact them, did you email them? There's this whole CRM piece like Salesforce. But Wild Apricot is a very specialized CRM system for associations and clubs. So our client said, we don't want to use a plugin. I have several people that said, I don't want to use plugins in WordPress for association management, for all these modules, donations, membership management, event management, so running events, taking money for events. I don't want to do any of that in WordPress. I want to have a beautiful site with nice graphics and various different flexible themed choices and all that stuff we know WordPress can do. I want to keep the database part in Wild Apricot. So what the challenge they gave us is, how do you meld the best of both of these worlds? And it's not easy, it turns out, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to make WordPress front end this database. So WordPress sitting there and it's communicating to Wild Apricot via something called a REST API. So if you've never heard of this concept, Google it and read up all about it, because it's probably one of the most transformational thing that's happened in my mind in computing since the personal computer. This is my, honestly, and I think it's more transformational even than phones, in my mind, from a technical perspective. Phones by far is a consumer product. is totally transformational. There's no doubt about it. Smartphones and smart devices, tablets, and a supercomputer in your pocket. No doubt for the average consumer is that. But it turns out that the reason why they can do what they do is because of this enabling technology called a REST API. So REST stands for Representational State Transfer, and API is Application Programming Interface. So the way to think about it is when you're running Facebook on your app, on your phone, the Facebook app communicates with the Facebook servers by calling these calls to say, hey, show me the feed or look at the profile of this person. And every time you click on anything in the UI, it actually calls this API, gets them data. And instead of sending big, huge web pages back and forth, it's just sending the data that's required and it renders it in the app. And a lot of your apps, Uber and Netflix, and a lot of them have REST APIs that are sitting, and there's no user front end. There's actually just a bunch of what they call endpoints waiting for authenticated requests to come and access data. That is what Wild Apricot has as well. And it was designed for their mobile apps. So you could Google like any popular app like Dropbox or Google Drive, or Facebook or Microsoft 365 and the word API, you will find almost inevitably a website that describes this API. Most of the APIs are public, not all of them, that actually could be used by programmers to develop apps for them. So this summer, so last fall, we were asked to do this. We used the app, the Wild Apricot, the plugin they gave us. It is not great. I would probably use some other words to describe it, but we're in a public sort of setting. We're recording the session. It's not a great plugin. We used it. We found a lot of issues with it. And we decided in May, actually in April, to rewrite the whole plugin. And so I brought on 3 summer interns. 2 of them are in the States. One is here in Collingwood. And they didn't know anything about WordPress in the beginning. And I bought them a book, which I've shared with you all. I have no idea where it is. I think I moved it from my desk here. It's called WordPress Plugin Development. If you want to learn really what WordPress is all about, beyond anything that we do in these workshops, I highly recommend even just getting this book out of the library or going and buying it online or getting an e-version, electronic version. I'm going to bring it up for you here. If I can find it. It's got WordPress plugin development. Where is it? Here it is. Professional WordPress plugin development version 2. It was the original copy of this was issued in 2011. So this book is literally already 10 years old. I can tell you without any doubt, this is the best book on WordPress I've ever read. Especially if you're interested in developing plugins. But even if you're not developing plugins, when you read this book, you understand actually what WordPress is, which is just a bunch of APIs. It's a bunch of filters and hooks, as they call them. And a plugin essentially changes the underlying functionality of WordPress and extends it by introducing your own filters and hooks or reusing these. And this concept of filters and hooks, super important. And this book goes into security. It goes into developing themes. It goes into really everything about the guts of WordPress. So you can't really go lower than this. And every plugin that's been developed is using some or all of these concepts. The people that wrote it, Brad Williams, Justin Tadlock, and John James Jacoby. John James Jacoby wrote, I believe, BB Press or Buddy Press. One of the most, he's probably written many more plugins. Justin Tadlock wrote a membership plugin. Brad Williams has written. These are 3 prolific plugin authors, commercial plugin authors, and all 3 of them collaborated and created now the 2nd edition, which is an update that's pretty much compliant with WordPress 5 because of Gutenberg. So they cover a lot about blocks as well in here and how to develop blocks. I can't say enough about this book. So I gave this book to all of our interns. I bought a copy of it, sent it to them, and they started developing a plugin absolutely from scratch, not even knowing what WordPress is. So they are developers, they're computer science students. So they do know how to write, but they didn't know anything about PHP or JavaScript in some cases, which is amazing. I think one person did know a little bit about JavaScript, but they're coders, and so they were able to figure out. So what does this plugin do? The first thing this does is, so it's called Wild Apricot for WordPress. We are going to be starting to beta test it in September. We've created a bunch of the functionality. We'll actually first show you, this is on our dev site. I'll show you kind of what it does. So the first thing it does is it synchronizes between Wild Apricot and WordPress. When you click the login button on here, this screen here is a login screen, but it's actually collecting the credentials for a completely separate Wild Apricot site right in here. This is Wild Apricot. It's a completely separate database. It's a software as a service product. You cannot install it in your own server. It's licensed. You have to buy a copy. You can get a free account, but it's got all this database functionality, which I will not go into. But it's got an API that you can configure here. And we have an API key that is actually usable on this test site. So what it does is, the first thing it does is that when you log in, it synchronizes and uses the credentials, not of WordPress, but rather connects remotely to Wild Apricot, tests these credentials, and once they've been confirmed, sends it back to WordPress and records the fact that somebody logged in the WordPress database. This is known as single sign-on. Single sign-on allows you then, so I've just pre-filled these credentials for my password manager. Let's see if this works. So I've now logged in. You can see I have a log out here. You can see my user here. And I am now known to the site with my credentials from a remote site. So very different than what WordPress normally does. Normally the credentials are local in WordPress. Now I have delegated the credentialing and authentication to a third site. Why would you do that? Well, because when you apply for an application, Wild Apricot generates the credentials for you, username and password. Now we've delegated that responsibility for WordPress to delegate to Wild Apricot to log in and then copy the credentials into the system. So if you look at now inside of our user database, I logged in with that support email address. Here's my login, and it actually copied my membership level into my role here. So if I look at actually edit this contact, you will see it has information about my email that was copied, and you will see a bunch of extra information here that was synchronized by the plugin into our WordPress database. Why is this important? It's important because this information can be used by any plugin to identify who this user is, including extended membership roles like the membership level and the status and the organization I belong with. This is something that was never filled out as part of a WordPress login, but it is inherited from a remote system via the API. So that's the first thing it does. The settings here, I won't get into the authentication details, but suffice it to say you can do what they call restriction. What does that mean? It means that we can say, well, look, if you are a lapsed, if you're lapsed in terms of the Wild Apricot status, we won't let you log in. I'm sorry, we won't let you access pages that are lapsed from lapsed members. So you can create a policy that says web pages that are available normally to members, if they're lapsed, it checks that, the plugin checks it and says, sorry, you can't see this page. So you can create a custom sort of status restriction. Furthermore, any restricted content that's restricted is now managed by Wild Apricot in terms of the level, but WordPress, you specify the message you see if somebody tries to access a page that's not available to them. This is very common. This idea of restricted content is normally managed by plugins in WordPress. This plugin inherits the status from Wild Apricot and introduces it into WordPress. What does that look like? Well, when you're editing a page, so well, I don't know why you'd want to do this, but if you're editing the home page, you can actually say, there's a whole bunch of new access controls here on the page. We have this Wild Apricot access control. You normally do not see this without our plugin, but because our plugin is here, you can say, okay, this page is available to these membership levels and these groups. All this information has been synchronized by a plugin from Wild Apricot. So it's maintained completely in a separate system and synchronized across. It's kind of a bridge between these two systems. So I can save these settings, and then if I'm logged in as a user that's not in one of these levels, I'll get a restriction error and say, sorry, can't log in. I'm sorry, you can't see this page. And that's how you restrict content. So you say, if you're this level, you get access to this pages. If you're this level, you get access to more. It's how almost all the access control is set on any website, this idea of roles that grant you privileges. So the other exciting thing is, now that we've got this content, we wanted to draw some of the information from Wild Apricot into a block. So this is our first experience with blocks. And what we've done here is we've created a block that we have actually 2 blocks. And these 2 blocks are, we have our own little custom icons for them. There's a wild apricot iframe block. And then there's a member directory block and a member profile block. So I'll start with this one here first. So the member directory block, what it does is it introduces the block and then introduces all these options here of what to include in a directory. A member directory would be a list of members in a club or association, customized to the view that you want to display them. So their name, their organization, anything that, let's say like a roster of club members. So this is, we're using Gutenberg. And what's interesting about this block is there's an underlying shortcode we're building dynamically from these settings. You can encode the shortcode manually if you know the idea of a shortcode, but we have a block here that you can build and effectively take any fields from our database. These are all fields being synchronized from Wild Apricot, and we can basically introduce them into this block. We can enable a search, a profile link. We can apply any membership fields that we want to add to this directory. And then we can specify how many members per post. If I say like 50, you can do 50 per post. And so I've got this block that's being maintained here. You can see this block shortcode is being built on the fly based on the information I've configured here. This is what we basically created is a shortcode, a builder. There's an underlying functionality that calls the API to grab this data from Wild Apricot, authenticated, but this block control is building this shortcode. Eventually, we can probably hide the shortcode and get a preview of actually what's happening here dynamically, which would be even cooler. But suffice it to say, let's take a look and see if this preview works. I've never tested this. Let's see. So what this is supposed to do is take our new page and we render it, and now we're getting data back from our system in a grid. Some records in our test database don't have any data, so that's why they're empty. You can click on view profile, and hopefully if everything goes right, we'll see a profile, although this wasn't working earlier today. Quite sure that. Yeah, we'll have to check to see this. For some reason, this wasn't working earlier. But this data is being dynamically generated from a completely separate system via API. Now, and then eventually we can style this with a theme and make it look any way we want. We have a native directory that's being driven. So in here we have like a paging mechanism to switch to the second page. And it's really fast, completely customizable. You can make this be a picture here. You can probably reuse any information any way you want. And so that is our block. The other block that we have is the iframe block. We actually have another one for the single profile as well. Oh, that's just maybe why it wasn't working. I have to probably put in the profile links. Let's see here. Let's see if this actually. See if this renders a little bit better with the profile link. Didn't finish configuring it. No. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of data there. Okay, let's see if there's something a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of data coming back, so I have to probably configure a little bit more. Here's another member directory actually that been already pre-configured, and so we can click on that. There we go. So we're retrieving the details here. So it would look, of course, nicer if you actually had a much more sort of a detailed view of all this data. But this is basically eliminates the hard-coded member directory that's available in Wild Apricot and gives people a lot of flexibility around what they can actually display here. The other block that we have that we're using is the iframe, which is kind of an old school way of doing this. And this is the standard way that normally you introduce data from another system. I don't like it because it is unfortunately using iframes, and we want to do things natively in WordPress. But we have a very easy way of introducing remote content from another system by just simply adding the URL and where it's actually coming from. This is automatically pre-filled. And so preview this in a tab, and we'll see if this loads. And this, what you'll see here is this content being loaded underneath here directly from an iframe from a completely separate site. It's actually coming from Wild Apricot. And this little frame is this is the standard view that you would see in Wild Apricot. It has some issues on mobile. We're trying to get away from it. So our idea is to effectively replace all the native Wild Apricot website functionality with native blocks, including membership applications, event calendar, all kinds of stuff. We have a fairly low roadmap. And what we're planning to do is also create a theme. Not sure if I'm ready to show this theme. Let's just see if it's in here or not. Just go ahead and trash this draft. We have a theme called, we're using the generate press library, and we've created a theme called unique. And I think this is maybe not deployed here. Let me just see if it's deployed in production. Oh yeah. Okay, so one of the things we're trying to do is the following. We are trying to basically, there's a little bit of debugging here. We're trying to do is we're trying to identify the set of colors from a library and automatically set the colors by doing something called quantization, which is identifying the most popular colors from a picture and allow you to color the whole theme with effectively the colors of a logo or something like that. So it's much easier for you to skin a theme based on a color of a logo or some other graphic. We have a library called Color Thief that actually we found on GitHub that allows you to actually do this quite easily. It literally counts the number of pixels of every color, finds what the most popular 3, 4, 5 colors are, and allows you to do that. So the actually part is running. And so once you do that, then we'll be able to identify a general color, and we're still kind of in the process of developing that. But the idea is that you'll be able to color sort of this whole theme with all these general colors and gives you a starting point that's compliant with your style guide. And then we'll be publishing that theme. So this plugin will be free for all Wild Apricot customers. And then we're going to start rolling out commercial add-ons that involve when you actually can make money, like say a membership application or event registration. Those will be commercial plugins that we'll add. So this plugin, if you are a Wild Apricot user, you can go to newpathconsulting.com/WAWP. You get a free license here. You click on beta access and fill out this form. You provide your URL of your Wild Apricot site, and we send you a key and a link to download the plugin to test.
Can you put that link? Can you put that link into the chat, please?
Sure. Are you a Wild Apricot user?
Yeah, that wasn't why I was here tonight, but I'm on the board of an organization that uses Wild Apricot that's looking at a web building exercise. We use the built-in website builder that's within Wild Apricot.
Yep.
And there's some debate about whether or not that's the way to go, or what you're talking about is building a website outside of Wild Apricot through WordPress and interfacing it through this app that you've developed.
Yeah.
And we're very much on the cusp of that discussion and that development. So I'd like to speak with you. Well, I'm not going to take up half an hour of the time, but if we could talk even tomorrow morning about that, because we have a board meeting actually on Thursday, so I want to give them some wisdom. I was here actually for my business thing, my business website, which we've run out of time to talk about today, but I'm definitely interested in this and the benefits of doing it one way versus the other.
The main benefit is that you get the power of flexibility of WordPress, which is well beyond anything Wild Apricot's website builder will ever have. Frankly.
And how difficult is it to export the content that we have on the Wild Apricot site? You have 10 years worth of data, and it's
not difficult. It's just a clerical exercise, right? And then you want to make sure that it's going to look nice in your WordPress site. So it's not really a copy and paste job. You're probably going to want to use blocks and potentially edit but it's a lift, right? Depending on how much content you have. So technically it's not difficult to do. It's a matter of doing that content editing or content migration exercise. There's no export in Wild Apricot of content, so you would have to redevelop it inside of WordPress. Yeah, but this generate press theme is interesting because this is one of the companies. There's few theme builders that are going all in on blocks, and in fact, they've actually created their own set of blocks called generate blocks, and you get them. We actually purchased the commercial license of this, and you can see some really neat blocks that they have. Let's see here, where are their blocks? Somewhere here. They're here. Yeah, they're using these are the generate blocks. There's a grid, container, buttons, and how these are their first sort of set of blocks that are kind of interesting. There's a grid control, and you can automatically create various grids for design, and then you've got the grid now. So now it automatically puts the grid in. Then you basically select what you would like to have in this grid. Let's say I want an image here. Then you create an image, you select it, and you have another grid. This is like a 1/3, 2/3, 1/3 grid. And so you start building. This starts to approximate some of the kind of page building functionality that you see in some of the page builders, but this is totally native block editor from Gutenberg block editor. And as this product matures, it's very clear that this kind of paradigm of editing over time, it's definitely not 100% there yet, by no means. I saw the widget editor today when somebody's editing it, and it's got some work to do to make that better. But what we were experimenting with was dynamic content through blocks. So effectively, you're getting data from a completely separate service. And we were surprised how fast it is and how effective it was. And hopefully in production, as we roll it out, it'll be just as performant. And it was really surprising, like how a block can communicate with an API, and it's extremely robust and straightforward process. There's blocks. These blocks can be just so many of them. It's not even funny. Like there's just tons of. Here's a gallery block, so you can create very simple. It's very easy galleries here. Gallery here, so you can do that. You can start building. This is a page that we're building here. So like for all intents and purposes, what is supposedly going to be happening is that eventually it's possible that the customizer, I don't know, I'm completely hypothesizing, is that the customizer will become of themes will become eventually it'll be more throughout the site. And in fact, already the widgets, and I think this is so the widgets now, this is very new with 5.8. The widgets now are editable in a block. This is totally new, right? So it does look quite different, and particularly, it's actually kind of previewing what it's supposed to look like. Although, frankly, this is not even anything. I mean, it is trying to render it, but it's not really what it looks like because the theme overrides this. So it's a little bit weird. This is kind of an in-between technology, I think. But you click on it, you'll see like this is very different. When you click on something, you navigate away from it, it actually renders what it's supposed to show, which is very different than the current widget editor, which doesn't show anything other than the configuration. So already you've got like this dynamic kind of concept of, oh, here's what my archives would look like. It's still out of the context of the rest of your site. I think with time, probably by version 6 of WordPress, I imagine that's what they're probably heading for, is you'll see either the customizer or you see a full builder where you're going to be clicking around menus. I think menus is the next thing they're going to be doing. Menus is not edited with the block builder, but I imagine that's going to be there. And eventually over time, I think these are all going to be coalesced into a kind of a Wix Squarespace type editor. And it's going to be just absolutely incredible. I think it's just going to be totally different WordPress, frankly, than what we're used to. And one that's a lot more user-friendly for beginners that don't understand all the various interrelationships between all these modules and how they work together. That's my hope, at least. Well, it's 8:20. We started a bit late. I know Leon, I think you wanted us to look at something on your site, right?
And you can look at my website. Is it embarrassing? Probably, but
No, I'm sure it's not.
I'll take. In fact, I'll let you. In 10 minutes, I'll let you do 3 minutes on each. My website is wasserresources.com.
Okay, I got it up. Yep.
You got it. That's me.
Yeah.
So very simple, and I'm not, because I do it myself, and I'm a hack, not a pro. So and as you can see here, okay, do you want to control it? You've got it on your screen.
No, it's fine. Tell me what you want.
Okay, so you see you've got a series of pull down menus,
Mhm.
and what we are is we're technology distributor. So we deal in a variety of building technologies. You can see them: smart building, power, thermal, waste, green living, and other. And we serve a variety of verticals, a variety of markets: industrial, commercial, residential, new build, and all. And
Yeah.
again, I welcome any
Generate
suggestions.
Press. Well, the first thing you did right is use Generate Press as a theme library. Good for you. Yeah, it's good. It's a nice.
Sorry,
very fast- You use Generate Press as a theme.
Yeah, I played around with a couple that seem to be neat and clean.
It's very nice. It's a very good theme. It's a good choice.
Okay.
The first thing I will say is you do have a lot of content here, and we got to be a little careful about these kind of deep menus, and especially how accessible they are. And you're offering a lot of content here. I would actually say, and you've got a nice letter here, but try to. So if you look at the analytics on almost any website, unless it's something like Amazon, where really there's a lot of deep linking going on, so they're linking to content. Most websites have content where it's like 50% or more of the traffic is on the homepage, and the average visit is like 1.5, 2 pages per visit, which means that if you're not capturing somebody's attention on the homepage, it's unlikely that you're gonna get their attention for the rest of the site.
That's not. I don't have the analytics open on my screen behind here, but no, because we are technology driven, and I do a lot of newsletters. I've got whatever 4,500 people on my mail list. So whenever I send out something that's topical, they head right to the technology or to the sectoral page. I'm scared to look at how many people look at the homepage, but I don't think that many.
Well, no, but like as a percentage of all your traffic, if you look at the page report over the last 6 months or last few months, what percentage of all the traffic is to the homepage, and what percentage to the other pages?
I
would hazard a guess. I would bet on it's more than 50%
on my home screen.
Yeah. Organic traffic.
That's not because maybe if they're searching for wasser resources, but usually
in general, that's just how the math works out. I mean, it's very unusual to find a website where the homepage is less than 50% of overall traffic, unless it's a site like Amazon.
To control a video device with your voice, you need to connect it first. In the Alexa app, go to settings and then TV and video to get started.
Alexa woke up for some reason, didn't like that. So I would look at that. And so what I mean by that is on your homepage, you got to capture attention. You've got a what's new message, but it's like people will see that and they'll read it. And then you've got one little link here, which is probably the call to action here that you want people to do. It's got a bit of a problem with formatting. We have to fix the underline here. Just take a look and see why that underline is.
Yeah.
Oh, you have class of broken link on there. Is that a broken link?
I just found that out today. I must have moved something.
No, it is a broken. Oh, wow, you have a plugin that's automatically showing you broken. That's kind of cool. So it's like it's changed your class to broken link, and as a result, it's actually.
Yeah, I just found that out just tonight when I went on it. Yes. It's linking to a brand new page that I created for the brand new Canada Greener Homes grant, and I think I created it and then I moved it. I retitled it, so I gotta.
This sort of. Well, I'm gonna just kind of like this sort of this kind of content here, you got to break it up so it's easier to parse. A letter on the home page this is good for an email, but this you need to kind of create some spacing and also some you could use the block editor to kind of create some columns and some calls to action, some buttons, something to kind of drive attention, and some people can parse it and then say, okay, I'm going to take the next step, right?
Because really the page, this is sort of almost for me a dummy page. The real page I want them to look at is that technology page, is what's white
okay.
and bold and blue.
This one
And,
here?
and so, yeah, well, it's that one, but it's also on the home page.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I want them to actually pay attention to.
Okay, well, so this is a list, but once again, there's a lot of text here, so you want them to parse and kind of look for what they're looking for. People consume websites not the way they read a book. I just want you to, if you take anything from if anyone takes anything from today's
Even
day,
engineers?
yes,
That's my market, engineers.
I don't care. You're a human being. You're
Okay.
actually
So
especially engineers, because they are extremely analytical people, and if they're looking for something, they want to find it quickly. And so you want them to parse through a lot of words here. Like they don't, especially somebody that's never been to your site. You want to lay out this.
So what would you use? Logos? Would you use graphics? A picture of the
well, yes, you gotta make it appealing, right? If this is I would agree, probably this is probably the technologies you want to link people to. Plus, you've got some sub content here, so you're gonna want to kind of organize this and structure it by priority first of all. So the kind of things that you think people are going to go to first, that should be based on some analytics you already have. And yeah, you can create columns, you can create all kinds of different layouts to kind of show, pictures of these things. And I would say that on one page, it would be hard for you to actually lay out all of this stuff.
Yeah,
then you can create an in between. You can say here are modeling technologies. You can put the links underneath them, but it has to be like this. By the way, your layout here is using a blog post. So all these widgets on the side, you can buy yourself space by removing them, because you're still using the page template that uses a blog post. So this is not at all relevant to this page here. So you can remove all of this stuff from these pages.
Take away the posts.
Well, if you have a blog post page, is there a blog post page here?
No, that is the blog post page.
These are blog posts?
No, but what's on the left, the blog.
Yeah, right. So you should have a link here.
Oh, I should have pull down. I should have a.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you could put this recent post as a gadget somewhere in this page to show the recent post, like 3. Yeah. So definitely, this logo is entirely too big. It's probably easily 3 times too large, because I have a full high definition monitor here. This logo is on the homepage is taking up literally half the homepage. And then this picture here is nice, but again, it's taking up the other half. So right away, you have to have somebody scroll to read something. That's a non-starter. People just don't have that patience. They want to sort of get, they're looking for calls to action. They're looking for, what do I click next to get my attention? If there's not there, it ain't happening. So why do you think, for example, well, let's just look at any media site. I know you're not a media site, but why do you think that the design on a media site is this way with headlines? This is basically a newspaper kind of approach. People are really used to parsing these headlines and seeing these icon cues for videos. This is years of research that these people have done to understand how people are parsing this. Look how small the navigation bar is here. There's just sections of the site. Now this is a news site, right? Okay, well, let's look at let's look at Tesla engineers, right? So this is a branding site, right? So now you've got a selection of, they want you to navigate to a particular, and so beautiful imagery. Like if you didn't have imagery, nobody would visit Tesla. Like they just simply wouldn't go to the site. So the whole reason for being is beautiful images. I would suggest that actually in your content, you probably should get some really high quality images to display what is it that you're talking about to get to capture that attention.
But there's about 20 items there. Do I put them all on one page?
No, you
Or-
can subdivide them into, well, here you have the top level content. You can have a
Yeah,
content.
and each one of those is a page. Each
Yeah.
technology group has a page itself.
So you can have like a navigation structure for these 5, 6 various different pieces here. I think you might be able, yeah, there's 6. So you have like 6 kind of buttons to navigate around, and then you work through, you might have a little bit of preview, but probably not. People know the various differences between these. And then when you click on a navigation item off a home page, then again, no, just text doesn't work like this. It's just, I know that that's what you want and you want to communicate, but honestly, I'm just telling you, people do not read this. In fact, my own website, my own company's site, we redesigned it for this year for the first time in 9 years. And the guy who I was working with, he's a marketer, and trust me, like, the young guy, and he was like, you've got good content. It's impossible to read. Because I was like you, I would like write and sort of show, I really wasn't doing is showing off about how smart I am. Frankly, that's what it is. But he totally ripped it apart. He said people do not understand what you do. And so what he wanted is he parsed out all these different pieces. This is also Generate Press theme. He's got these images here. You've got these buttons here to take you to the next content. And you've got our partners. So you can see like very, 2, 3, this is even too much text here. He said like 1, 2 paragraphs, what your features are, calls to action between them. What are the things you do? They're parsing pieces, bullet lists, this kind of stuff, calls to action, testimonials. People do this scrolling all the time. They scroll down the page. Doesn't mean that you don't have to have a long page. You have to have a broken up page. These are all Gutenberg block editing. This is all done natively in the block editor. Here's the last 3 articles. Here's the most 3 recent posts in the blog. That's all. You don't need a sidebar. You just need this. People will find it if they need it, right? So if they're parsing the site, and then he has these menus. He said 5 menus max, 5 menu items. So nobody's going to parse 6, 7, 10 menu items. They're just not going to. When will they do that? Yeah, well, they will do that if they're on Amazon.com, and here you've got links all over the place, right? But that's because people, again, even here you see they break up to sort of like, who visits the homepage of Amazon? Not many people. But if you do, then they're giving you sort of like the navigation of all imagery, right? There's almost no text here. They don't describe it as a clock. It's obvious it's a clock, right? Here's my browser, is like personalized browsing history. I'm looking at technical books. So this is what they're doing. And then when you sign in, this changes, right? So it's personalized. But do you see, this is the only menu bar that's here. Look at how tiny this menu bar is. People think, well, you have a big menu bar. No, people will find it if they need it. If they look for the menu bar, so look at your competitors and look at the site that you really like, and really think carefully and strategically about how you're communicating and how you think people are navigating. Now, I want to show you something else. This is our designer, and this blew me away what he did. So what he did is he actually created a, so I can find my report here. He created something called goals in Google Analytics. And a goal is a very simple Google Analytics system where you can design in Google Analytics, you add Google Analytics to your site, it starts recording your traffic. And a goal is simply a way to say, okay, if somebody went to this page, how many times do they go to this page or the next page after that? So a goal, you define a goal as certain places on your site that you want people to go to and maybe take an action, or just go to there. That could be a goal, just the fact they visited it. Now you'd think like, oh, well, I don't know what my goals are. Well, you got to define them. So he forced me to define 9 goals on my site. And what these goals are essentially visits and conversions, meaning click-throughs to the form on the page, to identify relative popularity of the 5 products that we sell. And this totally blew me away. The reason why is I was looking at this data in a completely different way. After we restructured the site, I realized that some of our products are literally 4 or 5 times less popular than the others. This is priority. This is strategic priority. Like I can set and say, hey, my QuickBooks manager has 380 visits so far since we relaunched our site, because it's a new page. And 2% of the visits to my website are for that. And they may seem not very much, but I've got like maybe 100 pages on my site. If you include the blog, several hundred. It's actually quite a bit. This purchase amount is not correct, but this is correct. So this is a conversion. And what it's saying is 275 people visited this plugin page, 1.4% of all the visits, 8 actually submitted the form so far, and I've got a negligible conversion rate. It's not even less than 0.1%. But as I keep on doing this, these goals are going to give me relative popularity. And these are my contact form, my discovery form, my migration and care plan views, and give me some relative information. So I can see that migration and care plan are very similar. These are directly pages and conversions from the calls to action, those buttons I showed you. So the idea of goals is actually, now that I look at Google Analytics completely different, it's a way for me to gauge, are people accomplishing what they came to my website, what the reason why I wanted them to get somewhere. And usually it's some kind of call to actions, filling out a form, sending you an email, doing whatever it is that you want as a goal, maybe buying one of your products, asking for more information. Websites are transactional in nature. They're really, other than newspaper sites and media sites, most business sites have some sort of transaction. It doesn't have to be a financial transaction. It could be actually just a form that you fill out. But that is how you engage the user to take the next step. And goals, setting up goals in Google Analytics, which is, there's all kinds of tutorials on it. It takes just a few minutes. It's funny, like I could have done this years ago on my site, but honestly, it took a designer to kind of say, hey, how come you've never set up goals? I'm like, well, I've read about them. I think they're too complex. He's like, it takes no time. He says, basically, you go into analytics and say, you start on this page, then you go to the next thing. You have to do the thank you pages separately for each goal. And so you have a form and you just set them up, and then Google Analytics does the rest. And it shows you this data. So
I recently installed Exact Metrics. Is that the same as Google Analytics?
what's that?
Exact Metrics?
I don't know. I don't know.
Hope I didn't.
There's a lot of software out there that actually just installs Google Analytics for you. Yeah, it is. It's a Google Analytics plugin. Yeah.
Okay.
So what it does is it actually installs Google Analytics and then shows you the data in a different way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does.
This is honestly overkill, because really you don't, first of all, Google has SiteKit, so it does similar for free right out of the box. It does the same thing. I would use Google stuff. They're probably up to date more. This is very nice and beautiful, but honestly, all this data is available in Google Analytics. I mean, it's nice it's inside of your site. It's totally fine. But interestingly enough, I don't see the word goals on here. I had the kind of revelation that goals are very much, these sessions are just arbitrary sessions, right? There's no focus to them. They're just like number of people that walked into the front door. Well, how many people did a particular thing that you want them to do out of all these sessions? When you see that, then you get some insight as to, wow, we have all these people coming in the front door and such a small percentage of them are doing what I want them to do. Why is that? Is it maybe too complex? Maybe they're my wording. How do I change that? What if I change this? Will it change my conversion rate? Will it change my number of visits? So that, I know that is, analytics gives you so the output, but when you change something and you see the result of that analytics over time, then you know you're doing something. That analytics is not just for this pretty chart to kind of spit up this data. It's really meant to be used so when you change something, you see an effect. So in theory, if you have a better goal management and you have more people doing things on your site, your bounce rate will go down. This screenshot is the ridiculously unrealistic bounce rate. This tells you that 80% of the users on the site, a little under 80%, don't just visit one page. This is a very effective low bounce rate. It's very rare that it's this low. Now you want to get it to as low as possible, because that means that people are clicking more than just the homepage, or they just find something and they continue clicking. That's the whole idea of engagement, right? Then if the bounce rate goes down, almost always the average session duration goes up. And all this data is available. There's nothing special about this dashboard. All of this information is coming from Google Analytics, just displayed a little bit differently in a more user-friendly way, I guess. But again, this was missing goals. You need goals, and goals are available just in Google Analytics. You have to set them up. This exactly, I don't know if this product actually allows you to configure Google Analytics through here. Kind of cool if it did. I doubt it.
it interfaces directly with Google
I
Analytics.
understand that, but does it allow you to create goals inside of Google Analytics?
That I haven't explored that. I'm only one day old in this.
I would love to see a plugin that actually allows you to configure goals from WordPress easier than what Google Analytics does. That would be cool. If they could give you a little wizard that says, okay, I'm going to create a goal for you now in WordPress, click, and then create a goal, and then it shows up on your dashboard. That would be nice. That's not how goals work right now.
That'll be the next app that you create.
Maybe, but I would love. I don't know if I want to do that. I'd rather have a company like this actually do this. I can see that they have universal tracking. Yep, of course, dashboard. Yep. All this is all normal stuff, but I mean, is it custom dimensions? No, it's probably not. Oh, this is like, yeah, it's interesting, but no, there's no goals. Contact them and see if they actually. The reason why I don't think you can set up goals through a plugin like this is goals are not accessible through the API of Google Analytics. So you can't actually create stuff inside of Google Analytics from a third-party system. This will read information from Google Analytics, but it's doubtful it'll actually write that thing's information into it. Now, this may be right here, custom events tracking, that might be related to goals. But there is a natural feature. Google Analytics, by the way, is totally changing. Version 4, Google Analytics 4, GA4, is completely blowing up the way analytics works. So in probably a few years, it's going to be a very different approach. So, all right. Alan says this is where the engineer needs to hire an art manager to lay out. Totally true. Yeah, it's not just an arts major. It's somebody that knows copywriting and psychology to some extent. You'd be surprised at how much website design is about psychological manipulation. It's really
in the best sense of the word.
Yes, I don't mean in a negative. Although honestly, Facebook, even negative. Like, have you ever thought why there's no dislike button on Facebook? There's only like buttons on Facebook. Like YouTube is the only system, social network that has a dislike button, as far as I know. And, and on YouTube, it's used for different purposes, not just to record dislikes. It's kind of a different kind of metric, but a lot of manipulation going on there. A lot. Like negative feedback loops, positive feedback loops. So, all right, folks. It's 8:40. Thank you for your time. We will see you again next month in September, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the summer.
Okay. Do you want to tell us what date it is, or do you have that?
It is on the site, but yeah, sure. Let me look it up. It's usually the third Tuesday of the usually the third Tuesday of the month, but let me just find it, make sure I know. It's September 21st. So yeah, third Tuesday of the month.
Cool.
Well, everyone, take care.
Awesome.
Cheers.
And Alex, I need to speak with you about the wild apricot.
Sure. Yeah, you have my email address. Give me a
I'll
shout.
give you a call tomorrow.
Okay.
Cool.
Cheers.